Okay, before we get talking about brushes or get started talking about brushes, you need to be aware of resolution, which I talked a little bit about when we talked about these points. Remember this number and this number refers to the number of points, which is what makes up the actual mesh. Okay, and to highlight that, I can turn on our polyframe here. So you can see it a little bit. There we go, Shift F. Okay, so these are, every one of these little dots is a point. This symmetry is on right now, so you're seeing double there. Okay, let me just show you then what you can do with that. So, the reason you need to be aware of that is when you are drawing, let's say, just drawing some eyebrows on this thing here, you'll see how chunky that is, okay? And that's very chunky simply because we don't have enough polygons there to move any more than what the geometry lets us do, okay? If I undo that, what you can do if you need more geometry is you can subdivide or divide the geometry. So to do that, you hold down Control and type D. Here, I'll do it with this on so you can see what happens here. Now, it didn't look like anything happened, but there are actually more points than there were before, than we started with. Okay, and if I do that again, you'll see the number here, active 37, 8. Now, every time you divide, it quadruples this. Okay, so if I do it again, you'll see we're now up to 151,000 polys. Whereas before we were, what, at 35, something like that? No, we was even less, 9,000. If I turn this off, you'll see it looks smoother, okay? And same deal, if I just drag on this now, you'll see suddenly we have a cleaner line, okay, because of that. Now, the reason they have active and total is the whole number that's in your scene. So if you have more than one tool, in other words, you have subtools, it will count those as well. The active one is the one that's selected, okay? The other thing you can do in ZBrush is you can go up and down in resolution. So I just opened up this little subpanel here in geometry. And if I click lower res, you'll see this number changed. This dropped down to the next lowest level, and I can go all the way back down to the beginning, okay? It still has all the information, all the smooth stuff that happened when we made this stroke, but we're now only working with a few thousand points rather than 151,000. Okay, so why would you want to do that? The biggest reason you might want to do that is when you're moving geometry around, you want to grab big hunks of polygons, not tiny little pieces of polygons. So if I change to the move tool here, the move brush, I almost call it the move tool, but it's the move brush. So B and B, and I hit down S key here to make this draw size larger, like so. I can grab this in this low res version and pull this stuff around like this, okay? Like so. Turn this into an alien, evil spawn alien child here. Okay, like that. And then when I go up in resolution, all the way to the top again, you'll notice this stroke moved right along with it, okay? So it keeps all that high res, high frequency information when you are working in the low res version, okay? So that's not to say you want to just crank this thing up to like a billion polygons. You don't. It will eventually slow things down considerably. What you want to do is kind of balance what you're doing with what the resolution of this object is, okay? The general rule of thumb, and this goes to pretty much everything in art, is you work from the general to the specific. So you start out with big shapes like this, okay, and as you refine those more and more, you can start then to think about putting more detail in, okay? Once you're happy with one aspect of something, you can add detail, okay, and that's again, that is sort of a general rule of thumb. It's the reason you don't want to start a drawing, excuse me, of a head, for instance, just by drawing the eye. Okay, you want to rough out the entire shape before you start doing that, right? That's the only way you're actually going to get it in the right place. Okay, so that's kind of the idea of this, all right? Just pay attention to those resolution points and you'll go from there, okay? One other thing regarding resolution is that's really what influences how things are going to look on your screen, okay, when you're actually drawing. And you probably kind of figured that out already, but with the standard brush here, if I try to draw something like this here, as you saw earlier, it looks really chunky like this. But the same thing goes if I were using an alpha or something like that, okay, to draw. If I try to do something like this and see this tiny detail on this over here, at a low resolution, it doesn't really know what to do with those polygons at that low level. So even when I bump this up, that stuff isn't going to show up like these fine lines, okay? It's only going to show up like that at the higher level, okay? So if I start drawing it like this, then I can see it. So again, you need to judge accordingly what action you're trying to get. So if something looks blurry, you can either up the resolution and work on it at a higher resolution, or you can wait and do that when your object is at a higher resolution. So sometimes you need to defer things until you know everything else is right before you move on to the part where you are going to be working more in a detailed manner. Okay, so remember, general stuff first, big gross shapes first, and then more specific detail-oriented things and positioning of more subtle elements later. Okay, keep that in mind and you'll have success working with this stuff. Okay, that's it.